Don't you worry about it, baby. Here, let's do the Israel-Iran real quick.
Iran's air defense trying to counter.
As you guys know, Israel in the process in this post-October haze, when it's doing and starting 7 different fronts, opening as many fronts of war as it possibly can get to say that its appetite for death and destruction in the region had struck the Iranian embassy compound in Damascus. This is a violation of sovereignty for Iran. Iran retaliated by sending a bunch of drones over to Israel, said they were going to do it. Took it was basically like a nothing burger. Israel then retaliated with also a nothing burger style counterattack. And then since then, a lot of other shit has happened. Obviously, Israel assassinated a bunch of IRGC commanders, including diplomats. Israel then also assassinated Ismail Haniyeh, who was at the time the leader of the Politburo chief, like the civil governance affairs guy, not the gun guy, not the guy who holds a gun, right? He was actually the principal negotiator on the ceasefire deal that was going on. Israel assassinated him in Tehran, which also, again, another direct violation of international, another violation of Iranian sovereignty, right? So Iran said, we will retaliate to that. Okay, at a certain point, we are going to retaliate to that. And retaliate to that, they did. They waited. Israel killed a bunch more IRGC people, diplomats, Hasan Nasrallah, who is, of course, the leader of General Secretary in Lebanon, and then invaded Lebanon. And then Iran did retaliate. Iran retaliated by striking 3 targets, 2 air bases in the Negev desert, and then the Mossad headquarters as well. The Mossad headquarters one, they didn't actually end up hitting, but they showed that they had the capability of sending missiles through not only Israel's air defense systems, the Iron Dome, which is for, like baby rockets and bathtub rockets that sends over. That's not that significant. But also Arrows 1, 2, and 3, and David Sling, and numerous other American allied forces and their anti-missile systems, including but not limited to in Jordan too. So they were able to penetrate Israel's anti-ballistic missile defense systems, and that's a pretty significant escalation, I would say. It's a pretty significant marker that the dynamic has shifted quite dramatically. Israel lied about it, said, "Oh, you didn't strike any of the targets." Also, it's now illegal to film the explosions. Don't ever do that. But we found out regardless that it was a pretty severe threat for Israel. So much so that Americans sent soldiers to Israel directly. 100 troops were deployed with THAAD, American anti-ballistic missile defense systems. And that's it. That's it. That's where we were at. Israel, of course, has been screaming bloody murder about this, wanting to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. Israel wanted to... Wait, what? What do you mean illegal to film explosions? They were like, don't film the explosions. Don't film the explosions in Israel. It's a violation of national security. Okay? So, overall, where we were at yesterday is Israel retaliating to Iran because of the last barrage of missiles that came from Iran and struck Israeli targets that penetrated the Israeli security, Israeli anti-missile defense systems. So Israel had to retaliate, right? And Israel wanted to retaliate by striking Iranian oil refineries. Israel wanted to retaliate by striking Iranian nuclear facilities. And Iran basically said, if you hit our energy sector, if you hit any part of our energy sector, we will light the entire region's oil production on fire, right? We will destroy it. We will make it so that everyone is punished. And that is the real reason why the United States of America remembered that they are the big dog in the scene and told Israel, no, you can't do that. You can't hit any of those targets. So Israel ended up hitting IRGC missile facilities last night. Some of those missiles were intercepted, it seems, by Iran, which was, I was, definitely a little bit surprised by that. But overall, Israel did the tit for tat. and didn't do normal Israel shit, right? They didn't destroy entire city blocks. They struck missile facilities. They kept their targets to a limited military capacity. Very interesting stuff. Israel does have restraint when America, the big dog, tells them, don't do that. So let's watch what happened.
After the Israeli strikes just before dawn. Over 3 weeks since Iran launched ballistic missiles in the other direction. Yes, the attack was calibrated, designed so as not to provoke all-out war. But this was still the largest direct assault on Iranian soil since the Iran-Iraq war in the 80s.
I can now confirm that we have concluded the Israeli response.
By the way, this is always the classic thing where people go, our boys actually lit it. They lit them up. We did it. Banger success. And then Iran will say, you got nothing. You barely even struck anything, right? Like, it's just a classic. Israel did this when Iran struck Israel. Iran's going to do this when Israel struck Iran. It is what it is, Just remember that.
To Iran's attack against Israel. We conducted targeted and precise strikes on military targets in Iran, immediate threats to the state of Israel. The Israel Defense Forces has fulfilled its mission.
Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli defense minister being briefed in the wee hours during the strikes. Such are the levels of aggression in this conflict now that up to 100 Israeli planes involved in striking multiple sites in Iran itself is considered at this point non-escalatory. As was promised to the US, Israel says it didn't hit oil fields or energy and nuclear infrastructure, just military targets.
The long reason we're a little late, I was on with the intelligence community.
Damn, it seems like no matter how old or decrepit our leadership is, they do have a capacity to restrain Israel, it seems. That's crazy, because, couple lessons that I'm noticing here, okay? One, contrary to popular opinion, contrary to what people think, America does have a say in what Israel gets to do and what Israel doesn't get to do. Seems like that is what is real. Now, you wouldn't notice that if you were to look at the past 12 months of the way that Joe Biden has been like, oh, man, I'm so mad at Bibi. I'm so mad, Jack. I'm so mad. I'm going to convert him to Christianity. I'm going to have a come to Jesus moment for him. Saying all this shit. Turns out they do have that capability of restraining Israel. Okay? Now, the other thing that it shows me is that turns out Israel does have the capability of, escalating marginally only, only marginally, not to the same severity, not to the same severity as their Lebanese incursion or as their Gaza. So it kind of feels like to me that if there are any sort of penalties incurred by Israel or other partners in the region or the entire global oil markets, for example, when Iran said we'll light the entire Gulf oil refineries on fire if you hit our oil refineries, all of a sudden Israel does have the capability to keep it limited to military targets. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting to me. Now, the reason why I'm saying all this is because, one, Israel gives everyone in the region no opportunity but to fight. Okay. Israel teaches time and time again, everyone that same lesson. You have to be able to fight back or else Israel will, kill all of your children, as they have done in Gaza. If you look at all of Israel's targets, if you look at the way it wages its quote unquote, the most defenseless people in Gaza that are under a belligerent occupier, the belligerent occupier being Israel, are absolutely destroyed. Okay. The less you have defenses, the more your women and children die. Lebanon, similar story. They're having a harder time in Lebanon because it has more military capabilities. Okay. They're still out of Lebanon, but Lebanon's sovereignty, due to its security partnership with Western states, is very limited. They don't have anti-air defense systems, for example. Iran, on the other hand, is completely outside of U.S. periphery and therefore has anti-missile systems, has anti-aircraft capabilities, and is a full-blown sovereign nation state. So Israel's retaliation to Iran is much more limited than its retaliation to Gaza and its retaliation to Lebanon. If anything, not even its retaliation, but like significant escalation. So that's really interesting to see. I don't think there were interceptions. I follow a bunch of OSINT nerds. I haven't seen anything like that. My OSINT nerds were saying that there were some successful interceptions, but it's neither here nor there, because the reality of the matter is Israel didn't do Lebanon. They didn't do the Dahiyya doctrine in Iran, if you noticed. Do you see what I'm saying?
The last half hour, 3.5 hours. It looks like they didn't hit anything other than military targets. My hope is this is the end.
First, let's look at the mechanics of the operation. F-15s and 16s take off from Israel in the early hours. It's understood that Tehran was given advanced through third parties, including Russia. During the week, military sites were hit in Syria, designed in part to clear the flight path to Iran. The attack started in earnest just before dawn.
I don't understand why Lebanon has less supposed sovereignty than Iran. I mean, it's an easy answer. It's because Lebanon still has, like, Lebanon is still within the periphery of the West and is not completely cast out, is not like under a rigorous sanctions regime, for example, and has security contracts with the likes of the United States of America. So when they have security contracts with the likes of the United States of America will send you some weapons, but it will also limit what kind of defensive capabilities you have. And that's the reason why Israeli fighter jets can, with much more ease, fly over Lebanese airspace and blow up targets in the middle of Lebanon, in the middle of Beirut. That's it. Iran, on the other hand, has been forced outside of forced outside of the global marketplace by the West, specifically by the United States of America, and therefore has been forced to develop defense capabilities on their own. That's the difference. And if you don't have that sovereignty, what Israel and the United States of America is basically showing the world, the lesson that they're teaching is, if you align with us, but you're disposable, we will let you die in the hands of Israel. We will let your children die. We will let your women and children die. We will let your civilians die. We'll let your infrastructure be crumbled when we see fit. This is a very dangerous lesson to teach every other country in the region. It is. It's dangerous. It's dangerous because if you can't full-blown pummel these areas and bring them to heel by doing ethnic cleansing campaigns like Israel is doing, and then let history run its course, there's always going to be resistance. Okay? There's always going to be resistance from these places because people are going to be like, well, you blew up my house. I don't like you anymore. Okay? And that's not good. That's not good for stability in the region.
In 3 waves.
The first wave was probably to knock out the air defense systems, the Iranian defense systems. Then came the main attack on the different targets. And then came the third wave, improving the hits if there were any misses or additional.
Why they call Israeli attacks retaliatory? Isn't that a bit delusional? No. I think Israel's attacks on Iran were retaliatory, just like Iran's attacks on Israel were retaliatory. Like, it's tit for tat at that point. It's actually closer to a tit for tat campaign than the way that, like, Israel claims it has a tit for tat campaign between themselves and Lebanon. Now, of course, Israel started it, but it doesn't matter. But notice how different Israel and Iran's back and forth is in comparison to Israel and Lebanon. That's what I'm trying to explain. They are much more restrained, and even the big dog in the room, the United States of America, is forcing restraint upon Israel. Because if left to their own devices, Israel would absolutely eviscerate Tehran. They would nuke them if they could. They don't give a shit. That's what they've been writing about, Benny Gantz and everyone else. All the moderates, supposedly, all the liberals, supposedly, have been talking about, like, it's time to light it on fire. It's time to kill Ayatollah's regime, blah, 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 all this shit. But they didn't do that.
Secondary targets.
Tehran has said it has a, quote, duty to defend itself, with Iranian news sources reporting that 4 soldiers were killed. No further details being given. Iranian media outlets presented the attack as limited in scope, and the fact that Tehran is playing this down is telling. Here's what calibration looked like on the outskirts of Gaza City today.
Yeah. You notice the difference there? That's the other thing that Israel does all the time, by the way. Whenever they want to feel better about themselves, they'll just go back and kill a bunch of civilians and children in Gaza too. That's the other side of it. They get mad, they go kill more people in Gaza, and they, it's just a repeat every single time. It's barbaric. It's disgusting. Israel wants the U.S. in a fight, in a war with Iran for them while they try to take over Lebanon beyond. I think that what America wants is for Israel to take up as much space as they possibly can. This is my analysis. Maybe I'm wrong, but the way I'm reading it is I think America wants Israel to, within the limited constraints that they have, limited time that they have, take as much space as they possibly can and basically set the region under full tilt domination so they can move on to the actual enemy, the bigger enemy, which is China. Like, not even Russia. It's actually China. China is the main priority. China is the main target. They have been gearing the American population with anti-Chinese sentiment already for a very long time. And I think eventually that is the goal. That's what it is. It's like, let's pack this up. Let's redefine the region. Let's set new boundaries. Let's give Israel as much power as we possibly can to dominate the region in our vision. And then we move on to the real problem, which is China. Let's move on and fight the big dogs. That's the way I see it. And I don't like it. I don't like what I see, but I fear that that's what's going on.
A whole building destroyed as Israel pursues its stated aim of stopping Hamas group. At least 22 people were killed here, including Ishmael Mugat's wife and 3 small children. They are under the rubble. What you're about to watch, a father's hope died.
Sounds like U.S. isolated Lebanon government from increased regional dominance. No, I think that America's sights on Lebanon is you're right. They don't want Lebanon to they don't want to have any sort of political influence over Lebanese politics, and the instability in Lebanon and the economic crash in Lebanon has caused Hezbollah to basically run the show. It's ironic because their lack of real security partnerships in Lebanon is part of the reason, is part of the problem. It's a unique predicament because the more you punish Lebanon, the more Hezbollah wins, right? If you don't like Hezbollah, you can't create a power vacuum in Lebanon. But if you don't have a power vacuum in Lebanon, and if you don't have economic instability in Lebanon, then might also take advantage of that security partnership and maybe even use the weapons that you're giving to Lebanon. And you can't have that either. So they're in a unique predicament because they just won't let any of these colonial designs become full-blown sovereign nation states. If they were to do that and they were to tell Israel to treat everyone else as like a normal partner, including the Palestinians, then ironically enough, I think that they would be able to more effectively curb Iranian influence and Iranian intervention in the axis of resistance because there would be no need for resistance. But the problem is they don't operate that way because I think that Americans, and I look at this stuff as seriously as I possibly can, it's going to come across reductive, but I think that they still operate with like some resilient white supremacist attitudes where they think that these guys are barbaric and they can't be trusted. You know what I mean? So these guys are barbaric. These Arabs are barbaric. They can't be trusted. So we have to. Let's get back to this Iran retaliatory situation, and then I'll continue covering this LA Times story in a second. I just got to deal with something real quick.
This area is between Gaza City and Jabalia, outside the Israelis' evacuation zone there. A boy watches the bodies of people he knows being pulled out.
ليش بتعيط قاعد؟ ليش بتعيط انت؟
If every soul is a world of its own, in Gaza, whole galaxies are dying. Over the last 4 weeks or so, myself and colleagues have been reporting live from Israel here about this upcoming retaliatory attack on Iran. And the big question was always, would Benjamin Netanyahu stick to his promise to Joe Biden of just striking those military sites, thus reining in the possibility of an all-engulfing regional war? Well, tonight it appears that that is what he has done. He has stuck to that promise. Such is the twisted parallel universe of this conflict that a strike of this size can happen and still the world lets out a sigh of relief.
Porrick in Tel Aviv, thank you very much indeed. Well, earlier I spoke to the Iranian academic Mohammad Marandi from the University of Tehran, who was close to the Iranian leadership. I began by asking how he thought the government of Iran might respond to Israel's strike.
Yeah,